My name's Dan Duvitz. I'm an artist and an architect. I've been doing work on wastelands and post-industrial sites and sites of regeneration for the last 20 years. And after my last project, which was about the fascist holiday camps in ruins in Italy, I was looking for something different and new to do, and started looking for sites around the world that spoke of megalomania. And in researching different sites, I stumbled across the story of Fordlandia. I was so interested. It was like, okay, I'd like to go and see what these ruins mean.
At the peak of his power, Henry Ford was credited with inventing the modern industrial age. In the 1920s, his Michigan factories assembled over 4,000 cars every day, using more than half of the world's entire rubber production. Back in that time, rubber was even more precious than oil. It was the original black gold.
You take a flight like Aeroflot that stops 15 times, and after sort of 28 hours of being what feels like on a bus that's an aeroplane, you sort of eventually arrive in Santarem, pass out for the night, and then get on a boat in the morning that takes another 18 hours or so, and eventually, after the same river, the same, it's kind of like mesmerizingly vast and the same, you suddenly arrive around a corner and you see this tower, which is still one of the tallest structures in the Amazon, this water tower. And that's when you've arrived.
Rubber was native to the Amazon jungle, but the British had a quasi-total monopoly on the resource through the vast plantations they had established in Burma and Sri Lanka at the end of the 19th century. Ford, wanting to break that monopoly, bought 2.5 million acres of Amazon forest from the Brazilian government.
Everybody around him thought it was total madness, including his son, his advisors. When he got professionals, agronomists, to advise him on how he was going to make a plantation in Brazil, they all told him you couldn't do it. So he didn't want to listen to any of these people. So if people said you couldn't do it, he said, go away. He was the richest man in the world at the time, as far as I know, certainly had untold riches. So it's a completely personal project, and I'm very interested in why he did it and what motivated him to do it, because he spent perhaps $500 million in today's terms at the height of the Great Recession.
His plan was very ambitious. Henry Ford was no longer in the industry of building machines and cars, he was in the industry of building men. Fordlandia was his work of civilization.
He went and bought up a piece of the Amazonian rainforest. It's nearly the size of Connecticut. I mean, just ridiculous. And he set fire to it, and he then bulldozed it. And then he set about buying all the seeds he could from all over the world and from Brazil, wherever he could get them. And he started seedlings, and he planted 2 million plants.
But Fordlandia wasn't just a rubber plantation, it was so much more than that.
Here you've got the Amazon River, a couple of guys heading down. Here you've got this shed. Now every single panel, piece of glass, piece of steel, but not the vultures, came from Dearborn. So he put them on these boats and shipped them down. There's that pioneering spirit. We're just going to make everything. We're just going to do it all. Whatever we need, we'll make it. We can do it. There was no limit on resources.
But the experiment was doomed from the beginning. Neither nature nor men would bend to the vision of the powerful auto tycoon.
No topsoil here, because he just removed it. So he's got no nutrients. First mistake. And the second thing is, the reason they don't grow together is Brazil's full of all the predators for that plant. There aren't the same predators in Burma or Sri Lanka, and that's why they can survive there. So the minute the trees have a canopy and touch each other, the blight just spreads through the lot. So they made it to 5 or 7 years by a lot of insecticide, and then they just all died, and he had to start again.
The men brought in to populate this utopia were given very specific guidelines and rules to live by.
You had to punch in and punch out, which was a really alien culture, as you can imagine, because you had to work 9 till 5 because he thought that's what everybody should do. And of course, it's too hot in the middle of the day to be doing that. And he also vaccinated everybody to within an inch of their life. So he was just pumping everybody full of chemicals. it was intended to be good, but it was a bit extreme, and the chemicals, were making people sick.
But the people eventually rioted, refusing to follow the procedures established by Ford.
So there were 30 clocks. As I said, you had to work 9 to 5. First riot was about working conditions, and it was just like, you can't fill us full of chemicals, can't tell us how to sleep, you can't make us work in the heat of the day, and we don't like this clock. So the first thing they did was smash all the clock. It was a pretty violent riot. All the staff ran out on a boat and moored themselves into the Amazon until everyone had calmed down.
Eventually, after multiple attempts, Henry Ford was forced to give up his dream.
3 years more, and they started calling it a research station. And 10 years later, when Henry Ford had to retire, that's when it was declared. They never really declared it a failure. They just gave up on it. He was probably waiting for it to be something he could take the press and make a big thing of, and that moment never arrived when he could declare the first commercial production of rubber. It never got to that stage. He never made any money at all.
But the ruins of Fordlandia remain standing, a testament of one man's delusions of grandeur.